Today's webinar, we're going to be talking about harnessing the power of customer feedback and reviews. This is a webinar that's co-presented by Yelp and Square. I actually have three colleagues from Square in our office today. So you know me, my name is John Carroll. I am a business outreach manager at Yelp. My focus is on educating people on how to handle online reviews, how to harness feedback, how to understand and utilize the tools that are available on Yelp and actually, in the internet world in general for business owners, and how to best set themselves up for success online when more and more consumers are turning to digital tools to find a local business.
And hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I'm here from Square. I lead the product marketing for our suite of customer marketing tools that are built into the Square point of sale. My experience in the marketing realm, I spent most of my career helping small businesses focus on not just acquiring customers, but helping them retain customers and build more loyalty. So I'm really thrilled to be here today to talk with John and you all about the power of customer feedback and tips for using that feedback to grow your business.
So as far as today's agenda, we're going to cover four main topics. Everyone's here because they know that online feedback and feedback as a business owner is an important thing. Within this space, Square and Yelp represent kind of two unique positions. Square is a great way and a great tool for getting kind of private or direct feedback to your business post-transaction. Yelp includes transactional business, but also speaks to people who are just coming into your business, but might not be transacting. And between our two platforms, it's really a great way to get a sense of some of the blind spots that your business might have, and also some of the things that your customers are really appreciating and are resonating with them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is simply why feedback matters.
That's right. And then once we know that, let's talk a little bit about how to actually respond to feedback.
And from there, feedback is great, but how do you actually get more of it? If this is something that's a really valuable tool for your business to benefit from and grow, the more the merrier. It can really only help.
That's right. And then finally, is how do you then turn that into growth for your feedback? Yeah. And what's really the benefit that caring for feedback and driving this customer service actually has in your business? So we will start first with a little bit about why feedback matters. I think we all know what it is in general, but the kind of different ways in which we can use feedback are first and foremost to give you as a business owner the quick pulse on what's going on in your business and help you really understand what's going well and what's not. And often you get that feedback close to real time.
And I think feedback takes a lot of different forms. I think when people think about feedback, especially now, they think, a customer coming up to you and saying something like right to your face, or that email that you get, or maybe it's that phone call that your customer service number is fielding. But there are all types of different feedback that your business can really pay attention to. Your most popular item is your most popular item for a reason, and it's because your customers love it, right? That is a form of feedback for your business to be paying attention to. It's something that you can actually map against and kind of benchmark against to try to figure out other ways that you can tweak and improve the different facets of your business. And I think the most important thing with feedback is that, feedback generally is going to be happening in real time. It's a way that you can engage with your customers. And some of these forms of feedback that we get, be it somebody saying something to you directly or paying attention to your best sellers, regardless of how you look at it and how you process it or approach it, it gives you better insights into your business, and it helps you build a better, more sustainable business that isn't going to just last 1 year, it can last 100 years. And I think between both of our platforms, and Christina, tell me if you agree, the businesses who embrace feedback the most, the businesses who don't just look at this as, how many smiley faces did I get? How many frowny faces did I get? How many 5-star reviews did I get? How many 1-star reviews did I get? Who aren't just looking at these as reviews, but are looking at this as feedback and a tool for their business to grow and improve from. Those are the ones who really succeed the most, and you see the best kind of returns on their overall participation and investment.
Yeah, I agree, because it's feedback changes over time. and you can use that as your kind of barometer to know how your company and your business is evolving in response to what you hear from your customers. It can help you improve your products. You can evolve the different service offerings that you have. You can even use it as ways to train your staff and kind of improve your service as a whole, which ultimately leads to your reputation. And that's, I think, one of the big points we want to underline here is that feedback really turns into what your online reputation is, that not just is a reflection of your business today, but that also impacts how people view your business and decide to come.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference now is, even 10 years ago, right, feedback was a very different animal. It was trying to gain insight into the word of mouth that's happening in your community. It's like the survey tool on the bottom of the receipt. It's that secret shopper program. In this digital age, small businesses now have access to the same extremely powerful feedback survey kind of benchmarking or pulse-taking tools that some of these huge companies had that were really some of their biggest differentiators. And with both of our tools and both of our platforms, I think we have to appreciate that the people who are giving this feedback are people who are champions of small business, people who are looking for a small business and want to visit a small business, aren't simply going to that big box option or searching online. So of the feedback that you're going to get, this is probably some of the most important and most valuable, because this is feedback coming directly from the pool of people who, as a brand, you are trying best to reach.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's talk about some of the different types of feedback here.
Yeah, so before we go too deeply, there's a distinction that we wanted to highlight a bit, which John already mentioned this, but it kind of represents the difference between Square and Yelp in the context of this webinar. And that's the difference between private feedback and public feedback. So I'll talk a little bit about private feedback. And this is comments or feedback that's delivered directly to a business and is not visible or shared with the public. So Square, this is the type of feedback that we collect on or have enable our businesses to collect. Within our point of sale, we have feedback tools, and you can see in the example here on the left, this is actually a snapshot from the top of a digital receipt. So if you were using Square as your point of sale, or if you've been to any other businesses that do, you may have seen this before. But whenever you get a receipt immediately following a transaction, there's this very easy invitation for a customer to leave some feedback. And you can tap one of these faces to which best represents your mood. And then that takes you to a quick little form where you can rate the business and write a quick review. What's really important to call out here is then that feedback goes directly to the business. It's not public. It's not shared with anybody else. It opens a one-on-one line of communication, which then as an owner, you can respond to directly and privately as well. What's really valuable about private feedback, especially when situations haven't gone well for the customer, is you actually have a chance to resolve that before it reaches a public forum. And one of the things, John, that you are going to touch on later is that customers often try a direct line of communication before they go to public forums.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things, and for those of you, I think a lot of people online understand Yelp is a review site. Christina, do you mind just saying, or explaining for those of you who might not be familiar with Square, what is Square? Like, what is Square for a small business? What are all kind of the different arms of Square?
Yeah, thank you. So if you've heard of Square, you probably associate us with taking credit card payments. We started with a small Square reader that could very easily plug into your phone. That was years ago. Now we actually have a full suite of point of sale tools that can help you run and grow your business. And so in addition to taking payments, we have a whole point of sale set up for small businesses that it not only helps you, do the basics of inventory and catalogs for the offerings you have, but we also have these pretty unique customer management and engagement tools built right into the point of sale as well. Feedback is one example. We also have a customer directory, email marketing, and loyalty programs as other examples. So there is a bit of an ecosystem just within Square itself. You can think of it as a one-stop shop for running your small business.
Yeah, and so for those of you who weren't familiar with Square, I think that's a really great rundown of it. I always think of Square as like the card reader at the farmer's market who like only used to take cash and then like has this whole new world of being able to accept credit cards from what I know is a really low on average per card transaction fee, which is why my personal lady at the farmer's market who sells jam loves it. But Yelp, if you're not familiar with Yelp, Yelp is a local business directory. Yelp was founded in 2004 in San Francisco. Really every category of business is on Yelp, and Yelp is a local business directory, and it's an online review site. So when we talk about public feedback, this is feedback that your customers, your patients, the patrons of your business are giving you that is public facing, meaning other consumers can actually access it. It doesn't necessarily go directly to the business owner specifically. These are reviews, and this is feedback and an insight that is not just going to you, but is going to your community at large.
Yeah. So as we start to think about why feedback matters some more, and whether it's private or public, I think a lot of the content we're talking about today really applies across the board. But you may want to actually pay attention to whether the feedback you're getting is direct or in a public forum, because that may affect how you respond or just the phrasing you may want to use. But we'll get to a little bit about that later. So one thing in terms of just why these review sites and why feedback is so important. Nielsen Ratings, which is one of the largest global research companies, has found that 8 out of 10 consumers now turn to review sites to find a local business. Not surprisingly, Yelp is the most popular of these review sites. But I think it really says a lot about consumer behavior in this day and age, that the role of the review site is really helping and aiding with discovery, particularly on a local scale.
And that's really the why you're here, right? That's really the why moment, is because feedback is obviously important for your business to grow and to improve and to kind of, move into the future. But it's because consumers more and more are turning to digital tools to, to assess and, validate the changes that businesses are making. And it's almost this race to see, can you adapt? Can you be ahead of that curve before consumers get access to that information? Like, how do you actually position yourself as a business owner, to grow and to expand and to adapt and evolve within this really competitive and fast-moving digital landscape? I think the most startling thing about the adoption of review sites, and you see people on their phones all the time, you see people increasingly interacting in a digital world. Almost 9 out of 10 consumers trust an online review as much as they trust a peer-to-peer recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, this was really surprising for me to hear, because people visit the sites, but then one of my first questions, and I'm sure a lot of you have the question as well, is like, well, how much weight do these reviews actually have? And I think seeing that almost 9 out of 10 consumers trust that just as much as talking to one of their friends, that's hugely impactful and just underscores how important this is, and I think why we're all here today.
And it really highlights that your online reviews are just your word of mouth that exists in your community, but online and amplified. There's actually this concept called the 1-9-90 principle, and this is something that was first observed on Wikipedia. And what that principle states is that 90% of the population who actually goes to a site is there to consume information. They're there to, read the pages, read the reviews, read the information. 9% might engage with it, so maybe 9% are, editing something or upvoting something, or saying something's helpful or something's funny, something's cool, or sending a compliment. 1% of the population is actually creating content. So when you think about your online reviews, the reason I bring this up is because if one person is saying it, that means that there are probably 99 people behind them who thought the exact same thing but did not actually take the time to write it down and share it with your business. And this is incredibly valuable to you, right? If somebody who writes you a negative review is actually highlighting a real problem in your business. I just read Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer. It's a book that I talk about on almost every single webinar that I give. And one of the things that he says is, the people who close businesses, the people who shut down businesses, the people who really have a negative impact on businesses are not the one-star reviewers. It's not the people who offer you critique. It's not the people who offer you criticism. It's the people who walk away saying, I would not go back there. It's the people who walk away saying, I would not use them again. and don't actually tell you why, because you have no opportunity to improve from that situation. The people who give you the negative feedback, the people who are telling you what you could do to actually improve your business, those are the people who are giving you a chance. Those are the people who love you enough to tell you why they hate you and to make sure that you're making right and doing right by the next person who's walking through that door so that you can be a better business going forward. Kind of in that vein, I want to introduce you to my friend Candace. Candace is an avid Yelp user. And one of the reasons that we're saying, this is kind of your word of mouth online and amplified, I'll show you in a second, but Candace, serial killer G, she lives in Silicon Valley. She's written 2,317 reviews, over 2,300 Yelp reviews. She is a Yelp Elite. She's been a Yelp Elite for a long time. She's uploaded almost 16,000 photos to Yelp. And when we think about this amplification, right, and we think about what these reviews mean, this is somebody who's evangelizing your brand, going to your business page, and leaving something out there that lives in perpetuity, right? Anyone who is considering your brand can then go to your page and find out this great piece of feedback from one of your customers. And that is so valuable to your business because that means that you don't have to worry if that person is just going to mention it at brunch, or talk about it in their office like for the week after. This is now something that people who are considering your business, considering your brand, are able to access this insight, access this social proof, access this peer-to-peer review of your business whenever they want. And it's far more people than that initial sphere of influence than that user actually has. I mean, even on Yelp, Candace has 4,600 friends, but in the last 90 days, her reviews have been read by almost 500,000 people. Her photos have been viewed by almost 2 million people. So really, Yelp and these public review sites, but Yelp in particular, this is your word of mouth amplified. And that's the power of this, because you're combining this really great marketing tool that has been time tested for local businesses forever and amplifying it with that social network effect and that online social community.
So I love those examples because you never know when someone comes into your store who's a Candace. And you never know who those influencers that are really going to have that amplified voice are. And so there is a huge benefit to treating almost every customer as if they're a Candace, right? But we want to just share a couple of stats that actually help support the business benefit of retaining as many customers as you can. And so studies have shown first that it costs 5 times more on average to acquire a new customer than it does to keep an existing customer around. We would all love to save money and get more customers in. So there's clearly a benefit there that the work that you do to keep these relationships positive or keep them coming back, even those negative reviews that are letting you know you have another chance, that's an opportunity for you to keep them coming back again, and is actually saves you more money than going out and spending money to bring more customers in. Secondly, these returning customers on average spend 67% more than a first-time customer. So harnessing this feedback is not just providing good service, but it encourages people to return and is also going to hit your bottom line down the road.
And there was a stat that I read recently, and people joke, and actually in that same book that I referenced before, people joke that advertising is the tax for being unremarkable, right? That businesses who have really loyal customers who continuously come back, they don't necessarily have a need to have these like big flashy banner ads or like these huge billboards or things like that. But what we found is, particularly on sites like this, particularly on sites like Yelp, this is a tool that, and even on Square, it's a tool that you're differentiated on based on your level and commitment to customer service. Mm-hmm. And what Bain found in a recent study is that a 5% increase in customer retention can actually drive a 95% increase in overall revenue. And I think that's a great point to tie back to, a customer who is loyal is going to be worth almost 70% more than somebody who is just a one-off, one-time shopper.
Right.
And more importantly, in thinking about these tools, somebody who is on Yelp, almost 80% of consumers who are on Yelp are looking for a business that they can visit multiple times. I think that's a really great thing in this digital age, as we talked about before. These are, digital evangelists of local businesses. They want to find somebody that they can visit and that they can love and that they can share that amazing experience with.
Yeah, some of it's human nature. We all like to feel special. And so as much as you can make customers feel special, that really helps drive loyalty.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so we're going to move into some more specific tips for how you can actually respond to feedback and make the most of this feedback that you are getting in. So what I wanted to do first is talk about a little bit more about this customer service point, and that customer service is something that you want to provide in all cases. We actually at Square are talking to small businesses all the time, and we hear over and over again how important providing good service is to them as a business owner, and how much pride is taken in being known as somebody who delivers excellent service and is known for that. So one of the ways that we help businesses keep tabs on that is by consolidating and aggregating all the feedback over time and giving some stats to help businesses know how they're doing. And what you can see here at the top, these are couple screenshots from dashboards that businesses would be able to view whether you're on Square or on Yelp. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the split between positive feedback and negative feedback, because we hear that we know that there's fear of the negative review, and that can be a really scary and stressful moment when that comes in. And there's a couple points we wanted to make before we delve into that. And the first is that negative feedback doesn't come in as often as you may think. What we see, and this is an example from one particular business, but we see the same trend across the board, is the blue lines represent positive feedback and ratings related to service, quality, wait time, etc. And the small little black lines are the negative comments. And on average, we see that roughly 95% of feedback is positive and only 5% is negative. And I know you guys see something similar on the Yelp side.
Yeah, so this graph is our overall rating distribution across Yelp. And I think when I first started at Yelp, I'm not sure that even I was like, oh, wow, that is a very surprising stat. But there are more 5-star reviews on Yelp than there are 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. So I think to Christina's point, these are not tools, knowing this audience and knowing that this audience really values, local businesses. These are not people who are going out there, trying to find something wrong with a little guy. And I think knowing that, it's really important that you put on your consumer hat when you're looking at your online feedback and thinking to yourself, last time you picked up the telephone to call somebody with a customer service issue, last time you called the manager over to your table, last time you hit that frowny face on your Square receipt, was there a legitimate issue? And I think 99.9% of people will say yes. And I think with the negative reviews, it's really important to realize that the customer who is writing these reviews, the customer who's giving these feedback, does not think that they have a legitimate customer service concern. So it's important that you pay attention to it, and they're not going into this situation thinking that they are in the wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really good point. And also, we'll touch on that negative reviews are not a dead end. Like you said earlier, that Hug Your Haters, I thought was a great reference there, that the fact that they took the time to write a review implies that there's a chance for you to correct that relationship or correct the issue, and give you an opportunity to learn from that and potentially save that customer to bring them back in. But so let's get into what to do when you get feedback and some tips for responding. So we'll start first here. This is an example of what feedback looks like when a small business receives it from Square. This is a screenshot. Imagine you're logged into your Square dashboard that only you as the owner or perhaps your managers can see. So when feedback comes in, you see there's the quick color code of whether it was a positive or negative experience. You can see how much was purchased, when it happened, and if you want to dive into the details, you can. But what's really important here is that we give you information about this customer so you can frame and contextualize how you want to handle the situation. Because our first tip here is all about personalization. So what you can see here is a negative experience happened, but you can take a look to understand how many times has this customer purchased from you? How much do they normally spend? Is this a valuable customer or not? Have they sent feedback before? Are they the type of customer that's really vocal to you? And you can make an assessment on what do I want to do to correct this issue. And all of this is really good information to help you personalize a response to the customer and make them feel like you really care about them and their experience, so that you can take full advantage and kind of hopefully bring them back in and correct the issue if it was indeed a negative response. The second tip is to then act and commit. And what we mean here is to act quickly. The faster you can respond, the better in general. It really shows the customers that you're listening and you're paying attention to the fact that they sent feedback. And then committing is all about being clear about any sort of action that you may want to take. If you need to just apologize for something that went wrong, just do that and own it and commit to either discussing the issue with your staff or offer the customer a make good. There are a lot of different things you can do, but I think giving a nod to the customer about what you plan to do with that feedback can go a really long way to making them feel heard and feel valued. And then the third point here is to save, and this means to save the customer. As we've mentioned, even in negative situations, there's an opportunity to bring customers back again. You have an open invitation there. And as we've talked about, we know that it's worthwhile from a, pure business standpoint, that if you can increase that retention of those customers, that's going to help your revenue down the line. And it's absolutely worth trying to save every customer that you have an opportunity to. So you want to speak to your customers in a way that shows you really care and you want them to come give you another chance. And I get a lot of questions about, well, does saving actually work? Do customers really come back? And our experience at Square says yes. We found that 13% of customers who received a response to negative feedback went back to the same business within a month to make another purchase. And that's really compelling. Like, that's a significant retention off of somebody that you think could have been a lost cause. So there are a couple different ways that you can try to save. This is an example here where we showed someone had ordered one item, but they actually got the wrong item. And situations were such that they couldn't go back and correct it in that moment. The owner decided to respond really quickly, and in this case, offered a coupon. This is something that within the Square interface, you have the option, in addition to just text responses that go through email, you can either refund the purchase or you can offer a coupon right within that same communication tool. And the coupon is a really nice tactic because this encourages the customer to come back in and hopefully retain that revenue with your business, and gives you a second chance to try to make things right with them. I mean, at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes, and every business is going to have good days and sometimes an off moment. And I think customers generally understand that, and it's all about just treating them in a way where you invite them to give you another chance.
And I love that comment that you made about personalization. I think that is so important. One of my friends actually has this, one of his New Year's resolutions was to not apologize if you don't actually mean it. And I think authenticity in any situation is such an important thing to do, and an important trait to kind of, or like mantra to live by. And as a business, I think that's why it's really helpful to imagine that this person who's giving you this feedback, writing this review, is standing right in front of you saying this exact same thing. How would you handle it then? Because online, just like, it would be a conversation face-to-face, your online experience and your online reviews and your feedback that you're getting is a conversation. This is not a one-sided monologue. This is a dialogue. And with that, I think the most important thing to realize is, on these platforms, as we said, what differentiates people is their commitment to customer service and their ability to provide great customer service. And what we found is that a review that mentions the phrase great customer service is 5 times more likely to be 5-star than 1-star. And when you think about that, that is really that's a really powerful thing, because these are not platforms, or feedback is really the ultimate kind of litmus test of how your business is doing, right? You can't fake happy customers, and frankly, great customer service is a long-term strategy. Eating that loss to make that person happy might mean that you turn them around and that they are going to go and say and tell 10 more people that you did a great job and you saved them, and they're probably going to come back. So it's really up to you as a business to say, what makes sense. And I think, one, having some of that seller information and having kind of that CRM tool and POS system that is tracking some of that information, that gives you that insight that you can kind of make a more educated decision, is really powerful and really, really helpful. But what we find time and time again is, the businesses who embrace feedback, the businesses who are customer-centric, who are focused on making sure that every single person, whether or not they buy something or otherwise, is leaving with a smile on their face, is going to be a brand evangelist and ambassador for them one way or the other. I always tell people, if somebody came up to you in a bar and you're wearing the shirt with your business's name on it, you wouldn't simply walk away from that person if they were going to say, "Oh, I love your business." So with these, I think it's really important that you actually take the time to, engage and respond. And I think personalizing it is one of the best ways that you can come off as authentic and really endear people to you and to your brand.
Yeah, and it's true. What's interesting is some of the research also shows that 6 in 10 consumers expect a response to online reviews, but in practice, it's much less than that. I don't know about what numbers you have at Yelp, but at Square, we see only about 3% of feedback is responded to. And usually if a business is making a choice, they will respond to the negative feedback over the positive. But I think we shouldn't forget to also respond and thank those that are giving positive feedback as well, because that will, again, this is a human being who you are imagining you're having a conversation with in person. That will help them even just feel better about the fact that they gave feedback and boost their loyalty so that they can become better advocates for you down the line.
And that always surprises me, that people prefer to respond or tend to respond to the negative, because I think there's that fear, there's that old adage that if you do a great job, somebody might tell 10 people, but if you do a bad job, they'll tell 100. And I don't necessarily think that that's true, right? I think, especially with platforms like this where people are proven to be sharing great feedback about their experiences with the business, we see that time and time again, if you're doing a great job, you're going to get the great feedback, and that's really what the focus has to be. But if you think about, responding to your positives and you're responding to your negatives as kind of two independent strategies, responding to a positive is really, giving somebody the ability to, giving and creating the potential to push somebody over that tipping point to really turn them from a fan to an evangelist to a brand ambassador, right? If you think about the negative, that's still an opportunity to turn them around. It's still a really powerful opportunity to win them back. But it's more importantly a customer service strategy, right? You want to make sure that these people feel heard and acknowledged. And what we found is that with online reviews, and particularly negative reviews, if you respond to a negative review within 24 hours, it's actually 33% more likely that that person will upgrade their review. And even beyond that, businesses who consistently respond to their negative reviews, and actually to all of their reviews on these platforms, see about a 5% increase in overall review content compared to those that don't. And you might be wondering, with the Square platform, with the Square system, it's really easy to kind of get in there and engage and respond to your reviews. With the Yelp platform, all of that happens through your business owner's account. So if you go to biz.yelp.com, that is where you can find and claim your business. And right in your business owner's account, you can actually respond to your reviews. And that happens under the reviews tab. And although Yelp is a public feedback tool, you have the ability to decide how you want to engage and respond to your consumers. So, what I always recommend is I always recommend a public comment. Even if you're saying thank you, I think having a really authentic, sincere, excited thank you deserves to be public, because that is a customer service strategy, but that's also a marketing strategy. With a public comment, you're not just speaking to the person who's on your page or to that specific customer who wrote your review. You're speaking to the next person who's on your page who's deciding whether or not to choose you. And this is speaking to them saying, I really appreciate and value these reviews. The other thing, say for example, you get a negative review, still post the public comment, thanking them for the feedback, finding that positive that's in their review, because there's almost always a positive, and then, put it back in their report. You say, we're going to send you a direct message so we can set up a time to talk, or provide the details of how to reach out to you directly. But you then have the ability to send a direct message to that user's inbox to try to delve deeper into the situation. And what I always recommend, and this is actually one of my favorite pieces of advice, whether or not you're on fire or you've got a review, I always recommend stop, drop, and roll. And this comes from a business owner that we're going to mention in just a second, or touch on again in just a second here. But the first thing is, when you get a negative review, there was actually a study done, and they found that people who get a negative review, once they read it, there is a fight or flight reflex. There is like a surge of adrenaline that courses through their veins that almost tells them to go to their computer and type out this furious response. But in fact, the best thing that you can do is stop and pause and take a step back and take a few deep breaths and walk away from it for a little bit if you have to. And then finally, when you're crafting that response, is step two. Drop the attitude, take the high road. You never want to get tit for tat with a consumer. That old adage, and I think especially customers who are looking at your page, knowing that you're going to respond publicly, they want to have confidence that the business that they're choosing is going to go to bat for them, good, bad, or otherwise. So you don't want to appear like the type of business that if somebody has a customer service issue, you're going to really go toe to toe with them over every single minute detail. So you want to take the high road. And I know that can sometimes be a little bit tough to do, but you want to make sure that you're providing the best level of customer service that you possibly can. And again, imagine if they're standing in front of you face to face. You're not going to get into it, point for point for point for point. You're going to just try to make things right, and you're going to, provide a great level of customer service. And then finally, roll with it, right? Be easy breezy. You're not going to make 100% of the people come into your business happy 100% of the time. And that is a-okay, right? That's why there are so many great local businesses. Not every single local business is right for every single local consumer. And just focus on providing that great customer service and being a customer-centric local business, and the great reviews are going to follow. So if you follow those three things when you're thinking about your review response, and at the end of the day, just focus on making sure that the next person walking through that door has a great experience with your business, you are going to be great.
I feel like this is really good relationship advice for just life in general.
Fires, reviews,
drop.
relationships.
Exactly.
There's no way you can't use that.
That's great. Well, we also want to talk a little bit about just how you get feedback. If you're not actively getting very much right now, what are some things that you can do to encourage that? And we have a couple kind of just high-level tips here, but I think it's really all about showing your customers that you appreciate feedback and that you're open to it. So, with whether it's Square or on your social presence or through Yelp, like making sure that you have these tools set up so that you can actually receive feedback, training your staff to simple things like asking your customers, how was your service today? Or is there anything we could have done better as they're about to leave the transaction? Those are all just quick little things that you can do.
And just create a positive environment kind of externally and internally. Share your reviews to Facebook, your Twitter account. Put Yelp badges and put those social proof badges on your website. Round up your team. So that stop, drop, and roll actually comes from a business owner in Austin, Texas. And this is a photo that he's uploaded to his page. And every single week, his team rounds up. They actually call it squaring up because they have a green square on the floor. And they read out the reviews that they got from the previous week and acknowledge the teams who were responsible for creating those wins, and acknowledge the opportunities as a group and brainstorm the best ways to to solve that. So it's really important that you focus on creating a positive environment overall, and it's going to let people know where they can best give you feedback, and that you as a business really appreciate feedback.
Yeah. So just a couple quick stats. We're starting to wrap up, but in terms of how your business can grow from this feedback, this stat here is 16%. It's been shown that businesses who regularly engage with their online critics see a 16% increase in loyalty across the board. So what that means is when you publicly respond and you're engaging and receptive to feedback and showing the world that you are willing to make changes and correct critical situations, it creates a positive swing for your entire business and shows those customers, as well as any potential customers who see this, that you really care and have the interests of your customers at heart. That loyalty, of course, then turns into more sales.
And actually, this number represents the drop in overall advocacy amongst your customers if you don't engage with feedback, if you don't show that flexibility and that willingness to make changes. So, if you choose not to engage with these reviewers, even amongst your most loyal customers, you see a 37% drop in overall brand advocacy. So it's really important to engage and, to make sure that people understand that this is something that your business really adopts wholeheartedly.
And so I just wanted to give a quick example for one business who does a really great job of listening and responding to feedback. This is Noe Valley Bakery. They're a 2-location bakery here in San Francisco. They use Square for payments and their point of sale. They're very active with their feedback and customer engagement tools, also very active on Yelp. And here you can see their feedback dashboard within the Square point of sale. They get a very regular stream of feedback from customers. And there's, when you look at it, at least a handful each week and sometimes a handful each day, and a good mix of positive, neutral, and negative. And I've been into this shop a few times, and there's always a line. It's a pretty busy place. But what's really remarkable is the owners make it a priority to respond to every single piece of feedback that comes through. So just a quick glimpse here of how they respond. You can see that whether it's a negative response, a neutral one, or a positive, in all of these cases, the owner jumps in quickly and says, "Thank you for giving me the feedback." There's always a thank you. And there's a really open and honest communication and conversation that makes customers feel appreciated. We are starting to run low on time, so I won't go into too much detail, but you'll all have the slides if you want to read the back and forth. But I think the main takeaway here is it does take a little bit of time to respond to feedback, but as you can see here, these are short, quick responses. And even that carries a big impact. With Noe Valley Bakery, they have 73% of their sales come from repeat visitors, and a lot of that is due to just the regular care and feeding of these relationships, and how thankful they are that they actually get the opportunity to get this feedback and engage with their customers in this way.
And that principle translates really well directly to Yelp. So Caprice checked into a hotel. It just was not exactly what she had hoped for. And what she found, she wrote a review on her first day, 1 star. That business contacted her the very next day, responded to her review publicly, but also gave her a phone call and agreed, this is utterly unacceptable. They laid out their plan to make things right. And on her 4th night, she upgraded her review to 4 stars because they did exactly what they said they would do. Consumers are reasonable. Consumers are coming to you, giving this feedback because they want to have a great experience and they want to be able to come back to your business. So it's important that you treat them and engage with them that way because if you do right by them, if you respond promptly, if you respond quickly, and you focus on making sure that they are happy, regardless of the situation, you are going to build that equity and that loyalty amongst, all of your customer base and have a much more sustainable and kind of long-term success plan. So with that, we actually want to, wrap up and just say thank you for attending today's webinar. I think Square actually has a couple cool things that they're doing with this webinar as well.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having us. Really awesome to be here, and thank you everybody for attending. A couple things here. We wanted to share that we do have a blog if tips and advice on how to start, run, and grow your business are of interest. A lot of great content similar to what we've been talking about today is available at Town Square. That's the name of our blog, and there'll be a link in the slide deck that you can check that out. And if you're interested in learning more about Square's point of sale or other products, you can visit squareup.com. We do have a special offer going for any of the webinar attendees. If you sign up to join Square, we are offering $1,000 in free credit card processing, and there'll be more information in the follow-up materials.
Yeah, and what's the website for that?
You'll be able, the link will be in the follow-up, but start at squareup.com.
Cool. And then for Yelp, just as always, check out our blog for great tips for business owners. The business section is really helpful at yelpblog.com. And then for Yelp FAQs and support, you can visit yelp.com/support. So with that, we have a few questions. I think we have some time. So we are going to turn it over